a lot of your self-portrait stuff online is related to these social movements. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Can you tell us a little bit about where that comes from and why you want to be a part of all those
well,
specific or particular movements? Or should we go back first to your story?
a lot of that would probably my story. I think the
Yeah.
background is really important for that.
Cool.
Sounds good. Tell us a little bit about.
So, like, I'm adopted to. I was adopted to a white family in the United States, the Kellys, and so it's like I said, like the Kellys. We help each other,
Yeah,
right?
that's the motto.
That's yeah, exactly. So like every Christmas Eve, we'd have like the nativity pageant,
Mm.
and then after that, like the whole town would come to my house, and we'd have a small Christmas party, right?
Beauty.
Nice.
And like every year, we used to do that.
Mm.
And for me, like as a kid, it's like not a big deal. Okay, all these people, yeah, wonderful. But like I realized, like as an adult, that's like no one does that.
That's a special.
That's a
time.
special
Yeah.
like thing. And but like that really highlights my family, I think. I mean, because like my dad was a Renaissance man. I mean, he was like he sold car and battery parts. He worked at country clubs. But I think that was like he yeah, when I was in elementary school, he was my ski instructor,
Yeah,
you know. But but he had this walk-in diner,
yeah.
and so his name's Phil, but like that was kind of the joke. He was always at the heart of all the filibuster.
Oh yeah.
But like I mean that was the thing. Like he had his pulse, like he had his finger on the pulse
yeah.
of like the community, and like you'd have all these locals come in, and so they would talk about everything,
Yeah.
politics, local politics, national politics, community, what's going on, this child, like everything, and
Sounds like an Oakdome coffee shop.
yeah. But, and then
Kelly podcast.
like later on, he also became like I think, like the police in the community, they made this group for like juvenile offenders,
Mm.
and so when they went to court, like you'd have the adults from the community where they would like discuss with the police what they thought would be a better way of handling situations for children.
Beautiful.
And so like my dad was a part of that, from what I understand.
Mm.
So that's what I get from my dad's side of the family.
Mm.
Like he was always helping people,
Yeah.
But then on my mom's side of the family, my mom was originally a dental hygienist,
Mm.
but then in the community that we lived in, there were a lot of children with special needs, and well, children and adults with special needs, and there was no place for them to go. So my mom, just with her personality, she was just like, okay, I'm not going to wait for our community to have someone like this come here. So she decided to go back to college, became a speech pathologist,
No way.
and then she started a daycare center from like the ground up with her best friend.
Wow.
And then like throughout the course of her life, she just kept building it, and then eventually, got government grants, and like a couple
Sold
years
it to
back,
Jeff Bezos.
a couple years back, they built like this huge addition to it and everything.
No way.
So, but yeah, so as a kid, I've met people with like physical and psychological handicaps, and so through her, I've understand other people's struggles and those kind of things,
Yeah.
and community needs, and so the whole community values thing has always been a very huge part of my life,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so
Isn't that the benefit of living in, I don't know how big your city or town is, but isn't that
Small
the
town.
benefit of small town?
well,
Like I feel so lost in the big city, but growing up in Thunder Bay is 110,000,
But that's the thing. When there's more people, you have less the diffusion of responsibility. Like someone else is going to do it. Someone else is going to do it. But
well,
And that's why I really like this. And Ulsan is huge. Ulsan's like New York to me. I mean, this
Right.
is huge.
but even look at
And people say, "Oh, Seoul," but I think the same of Vancouver and Toronto and New York. And I feel out of place. They're good for 3 or 4 days to do the ooh and ah, but man, it's nice to have that community and connection in the smaller places.
but I mean, for me, I mean, just no matter where you go in life, there's always good and bad about everything.
absolutely.
So, like, yeah, living in a small community was great because you get family values, you get the community coming together, closely knit. What was difficult for me is that in my community, I was like one of 3 Asian people.
Like my high school.
Right. So
Mm.
growing up, like I knew I was visually different than everyone else, you know.
Mm.
But like, I mean, I used to have that all the time. People saying like, "Oh, you're not American. You're not American. Go back to your country." All that other, and I was like, what, 7 years old, 8 years old, you know. So I mean,
You can't even process that.
yeah, exactly.
Go back to
You
my
know,
country, yeah.
I mean, all the other kids got, "You're fat, you're ugly," and me, "You're not American." Like that, you know. So that's always like weighed on my heart ever since I was little.
Mm.
Right. But again, well, now, I mean, that kind of brings us to where we are now with like all the Asian hate in the U.S. and then you know, Black Lives Matter, all that stuff. But that's why I do it.
Mm.
You know, like one, like because I think to a degree, I think everyone is responsible to fight the good fight,
Yeah.
right? Or at the bare minimum, don't add to it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Like,
On the far end of the scale.
you know, I mean, like seriously, like, you know, if you want to be racist, keep that shit to yourself.
Mm.
That's your choice. I'm not going to change your mind,
Absolutely.
right? But if you go out there and you're hurting other people and you're making
Right.
whatever community you're in a worse place, fuck you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's it. And I think that's kind of the thing, especially these days, like because you have like cancel culture and like I mean, for the United States, we have the freedom of speech,
Mm.
right? So even if it's unpopular, people have the right to say what they want,
Mm.
right? But you know, there's a responsibility that comes with that,
Sure.
you know, and so yeah. So for me, especially like with my photography, I think that's one of the things that's really important to me. It's like, you know, like I said earlier, if you're gonna do something, do it with purpose.
Mm.
And so for me, like photography is one way I express myself, and always has been. And for me, it's a way to bring light to issues that need to be like spoken upon and to be like showcased, and so people know more about it and they can educate themselves. But more importantly, giving voice to those people who you don't hear.
Yeah.
So same thing. Like people ask me, like in Korea, it's like, you know, you did the whole Black Lives Matter thing. It's like, why? It's Korea,
Mm.
and that's kind of the whole point.